Hi everyone and welcome to another pick a card reading. Today's subject is quite simple, the present energies in your life and where this is leading you. Now before I begin the reading, I would just like to mention something really funny. When I started shuffling the cards and all that, the question that I originally asked was your spiritual path, as in the path that you're on right now and where that is leading you. But no matter what I did, the cards simply refused to answer. And as I was struggling and even panicking at one moment, it just popped into my mind that there is a principle in divination. The question that you ask ultimately is gonna be reflected in the answer. And that kind of suggested that I was asking a really unwise question, where the answer would not make sense. And this points to the fact that maybe all of us collectively and individually alike are just before a massive shift or change or a big karmic reconfiguration, and we won't be able to tell what is gonna happen next in our lives and even collectively only after we are faced with it, as in we are actually in it, living it. Which, is not the very best news. Neither is it a very optimistic sign from a universe, from a collective perspective, as in what is gonna go on in the world. But like always, individually, that can be quite the opposite. So after I changed the question, as in just to reveal what presently is going on energetically in your life and where this is guiding you, the cards immediately popped up, they made sense, so everything went back to normal. The reason why I'm mentioning this is that perhaps this is an indication that we have to prepare ourselves for surprises and unexpected twists of events. And even though chances are that they might be much more dominant collectively, externally, the principle as within, so without, well, that is perfectly valid, reversed as well. That which goes on around us in the world, even if in a very, very small proportion, well, it still affects us. So after all of this being said, the instructions are simple as always. Just take a look at the 4 pile of cards and choose a stack which appeals to your intuitive senses the most. Interpretation for the 4 piles can be found in the description of the video. And if I don't forget this time, also in the comments below. Thank you so much for listening, and now let's get to the interpretation. Hello everyone who has chosen the 1st pile. As I said in the intro, these cards take a look at the energies playing out in the present moment in your life and where these are leading you towards. And also, this is much more from a spiritual perspective, so keep that in mind. Your cards are the Ace of Cups, the 7 of Swords, the High Priest, and the 4 of Pentacles. Now, this energy is really, really beautiful. The presence of the divine is, without a shadow of a doubt, very, very active in your life, maybe in your dreams, maybe in your daily spiritual practices. Even if those are more passive, so to speak, like for some people, it's simply when they spend time with themselves, go out in nature, go for a walk, go to the gym, listen to music, spend time with their animal companions, listen to meditations, or for some people, it's even listening to pick a card readings. It really doesn't matter how this manifests physically, because each and every person has their own ways, their own unique gestures, so to speak, how they connect with the divine. And for some people, it's as simple as simply going to the gym, and you might be thinking, well, that's not really spiritual, or that's not that very relevant. But it still puts the brain, the thoughts, the analytic function of our minds to autopilot. It rests it, it relaxes it. the body is also performing like a automatic routine. And an exercise is basically where we alchemize physical energy. So that means it's such a perfect opportunity for all of that to happen within us as well. But of course, it doesn't necessarily have to be like physical exercise. A lot of people have these connection moments with the divine or with their higher selves or with their inner world when they like take a shower, take a bath. And I heard so many people telling me that that is always when they get like epiphanies, bright ideas, light bulb moments. But the way this happens is not as important. What's more important is that it's really, really active. It's almost alive in your life. Guidance, your intuition, your inner voice, your empathic senses are extremely active right now. And that is always a very, very good sign, because it means that maybe in just the very recent past, you have surrendered certain things to the universe, to the divine intelligence, and that is exactly what's reconfiguring, working in your life right now. And of course, another expression of this Ace of Cups, well, it is your intent, it is what your soul wants to create in your life. And especially in this tarot deck, which is called Yoga Tarot, well, it means serenity, it means harmony, it means inner peace, it means you trying to build up a psychological fortitude, resilience, one which is actually based on faith and spirituality, not just psychological means, if that makes sense. For example, like positive affirmations and auto-suggestion and all of that. Now the next card, the Seven of Swords. Well, this is actually either a challenge, a blockage, or something that you are struggling with. And what this actually means in a palpable way is different for different people. For some people, the Seven of Swords is your social circle, your friends, every kind of relationship that you have in your life. So in other words, other people who might be very challenging right now. Maybe there are conflicts in your social circle, and even if you're not part of them, those conflicts still like bother you. It basically disturbs that serenity which the Ace of Cups represents. But for other people, it can be that your friends are very, very needy and they communicate with you all the time. So messages, phone calls, invitations, ask for help or your presence, your opinion, your advice. And there's nothing wrong with this. It's just a little bit way too overwhelming right now. And it turns into like irritation. When the phone rings or when you get the message, it's not like you're overjoyed, quite the contrary. You might be thinking, what now? Or who could possibly want something? Because I just hung up the phone 5 minutes ago. But for others still, it can actually represent the internet. For example, social media. And ironically, with this Ace of Cups, it doesn't mean that you're buying into manipulation or all of that. Quite the contrary, you have a very strong defense against that. But it can simply represent that right now you are in a phase where empirical knowledge, information, even if that is scientific, even if that is spiritual in nature, it simply doesn't serve your greatest good. So it actually bothers you, it actually creates dichotomies within your mind, within your way of thinking, within your communication. Even if it's like some kind of scientific research, even if it's like you documenting yourself, reading, gathering information, trying to figure out something from a very mental, rational, logical perspective, right now it's actually blocking you, so it's not doing anything good in your life. For some people, it can also represent like a coach, like a spiritual teacher, or this might be so ironic for me to say this, maybe actually pick a card readings or divination that source from the internet, and that absolutely includes mine as well, which is confusing you more than doing you good. So where all of this is going to lead you is a separation, where ultimately either you will take a break or simply block those out from your life. And what is coming next is the High Priest, which is a really, really good sign because it offers you stability, to be rooted, to be grounded in your faith. And the High Priest is not just sheer philosophy, is also living by example, embodying your faith in every single area of your life. And if that Ace of Cups is the depiction of your faith, well, then your faith is not rigid, it flows like water. It is always prosperous, life-giving, rejuvenating, healing like water. And for some of you, it's actually, especially those of you who are very artistic or creative, it is also inspiration, where you're guided to create, you're guided to excel at how you express your artistic self or your creativity. And this can include like your physical job, this can include every single area of your life, even those which are not that very much susceptible to spirituality. But divine inspiration is divine inspiration. It just helps you to beautify everything that you touch. So as soon as you block out whatever that Seven of Swords represents, either friends or maybe your own, this is something that I haven't mentioned, it can also represent your own fears, but those fears are, for example, paperwork, official matters, legal matters, the legal or physical side of business transaction, etc. But anyway, as soon as that stops or becomes a very, very faint and insignificant influence in your life, that High Priest combined with that Four of Pentacles, well, that means stability. That means being able to embody or manifest your divine inspiration. And that can mean so very many beautiful things. Even from a strictly material and physical perspective, it can mean the High Priest a contract. It can mean new work. It can mean a reliable source of income. Even if this is for the short-term future, well, prosperity is still prosperity, so it's actually really, really good. And there is a darker side of the Four of Pentacles, which means not wanting to share whatever your worth is with anyone. So it means a certain kind of discrimination, but all of this in the positive sense. If you're an artist or you're a creator or you use creativity within your job, your career, well, of course you don't want to share it with everyone. Once you start truly seeing the value of what you do, and once it becomes very crystal clear to you that it's also given to you by divine inspiration, well, you will not give it to anyone, and that is a really, really good thing. So being a little bit, how should I even say this, authoritarian with who you allow to see your value and your worth is actually going to be a good thing, a positive thing, because by that you are just going to preserve your serenity. You're just going to show the universe how much you value the divine inspiration, or in any other way that the spirit is very, very active and alive in your life right now. So ultimately this means being true to your faith, being true to where you're guided, spiritually speaking, is gonna actually turn into a blessing in your life, even if it's not like something extremely miraculous, even if it just means stability, groundedness, just being okay and stable and knowing what you can rely upon and what is very uncertain. That is still really a blessing, because it gives you a certain kind of comfort that the spirit, whatever this Ace of Cups represents for you personally, is truly watching over you, and not just metaphorically, but quite literally. And as a divine guidance, what I'm picking up for you guys from the combination of these cards, it's almost like the symbols tell you in a very direct manner that right now you are your own teacher from every single perspective, and that includes spiritually as well. You don't need the opinion, the vision, the philosophies, the expertise of any other person, because right now when that Ace of Cups is so very alive and active within your life and within yourself, that inspiration can guide you in every way possible, including, teaching you everything that you would like to know, everything that you need guidance and help with. And that can actually mean very physical, practical things, those which normally would not really be susceptible to this kind of self-initiation, if this makes sense. So ultimately, the message here is quite simple. Listen to yourself and don't listen to others. That which you feel, that which you are guided to do, those choices which you are inspired to make, and this high priest can even represent contracts, legal agreements, legally binding decisions, are the right ones for you because they offer you stability, the Four of Coins. So simply listen to yourself, listen to your inner voice, because none of this is coincidental. It isn't even karmic. It is more like you wished for true and authentic guidance. You asked the divine to help you or show you the path, or you surrendered something, and this is like a direct reply to what you asked. So this concludes your reading. Thank you so much for listening. Wish everyone a blessed weekend. Hello everyone who has chosen the second pile. As I said in the intro, this reading is about the energies playing out in your life in the present moment and where all of this is leading you. And all of this comes through from a much more spiritual perspective than anything else. So your cards are the Ace of Cups, the Six of Coins, the Knight of Coins, and the Nine of Wands. Now this Ace of Cups represents a divine blessing. It can even speak about your prayer being answered. And the rest of the cards might represent what you asked for just in the recent past, maybe a month ago, 2 months ago, where these cards, especially the coin cards, were in reverse position. So the Six of Coins represents that you didn't have a lot of prosperity in your life. Either you suffered some unexpected losses, for example, something broke, something very expensive, and you had to replace it, and that really affected your financial situation. It could also represent that your expenses just built up over time, and you didn't receive as much income as you expected. So, that meant that you really had to cut certain things out of your life to manage, just to make it through. And this Knight of Coins, when it was reversed, it also meant that the future back then, so a couple of months ago maybe, didn't look very optimistic at all. Because as I said before, either it meant that your income was diminished, or if you are like self-employed or have your own business or are a professional, you didn't have as many customers, clients, collaborations, business opportunities as usual, and not due to your own circumstances or situation, but maybe due to, whatever is going on in the world, the global economy or the local economy. It wasn't a very prosperous time. Maybe some of you suffered from ill health, or you got burned out a little bit and you had to stop, you had to take some time out. Regardless of how this came together, it still stopped you in your tracks. And right now, the current energies, the present moment energies, well, as you can see, all of the cards are upright. So that means the divine did help you already with this. Maybe some new business came in. Maybe you were inspired to take a certain course of action, business-wise, creativity-wise, to look for certain like collaborations. Or maybe the Six of Coins, a friend, someone who supports you, someone who is a fan of your work, or whatever it is that you do, a family member helped you out. Someone might have been generous to you, and it got you back on track. And right now, even if you're not really showered with prosperity, maybe you're not back to 100% yet, but you are working on it. If you are someone like self-employed, you're really using your creativity, you're using your inspiration, you're actually alchemizing the Ace of Cups, your spiritual power, to make everything work, to make progress, to improve. And this Knight of Coins, well, it on one hand represents that your progress is back on track. You can already see the light at the end of the tunnel. Your calculations, financially speaking, already add up. They make sense. They're okay in the sense that your survival is no longer a problem. So the future is quite promising. Of course, this doesn't mean like luxury and prosperity in its most miraculous sense. It just means that you're able to progress, you're able to live decently, and you no longer have that fear that what am I gonna do tomorrow, what am I gonna do when my finances run out, or if you suffered from ill health or burnout or something stopped you in your tracks. You already got your confidence, your mojo, so to speak, back. So you know that you're gonna be okay because you can work for it. You can do whatever is needed. Also because, these cards are actually dominated by the Ace of Cups energy, which means spiritual, emotional prosperity, a divine gift of inspiration, inner creativity, finding pleasure and joy in doing whatever it is that you do for a living, your work, your project. If you're an artist, then it's almost self-explanatory. You have all these ideas, inspirations, and you just need to put them in practice. And there's nothing wrong with that because you're actually doing it. But this is where the outcome, where this is guiding you, is the Nine of Wands. And that almost acts like a two-headed axe, because its most favorable expression is a massive breakthrough, a really strong inner resourcefulness. When you're at your very best, you have the willpower to accomplish things which are even beyond your limits, so to speak. It can also mean like a creative, artistic marathon that you're in. You just can't stop creating. But there is a price to this, and that is a not so favorable expression, because it will lead you to fatigue, it will lead you to wounding in a symbolic sense. It will consume your energy, it will consume your ambition, it will consume your inner fire. And when you get there, you will have no choice but to rest. So this card is actually warning you in a way not to overdo it, to have limits. The inspiration and creativity is not going anywhere, especially if you hold it in balance, if you know your limits, if you know measure. And even though you might feel a sense of urgency that let's do it quickly before the inspiration doesn't run out, before my ambition doesn't fade away. So basically it's almost like a battle with time where you display strength in opposition. That is the accepted interpretation of the Nine of Wands, strength in opposition, where of course you are like a hero, like a Hercules, facing challenges which would normally break you. But the sense of urgency may be just a trick of your mind. Maybe, you got a little bit frightened, almost a tiny bit traumatized in just the recent past, whatever the blockage, the material blockage represented for you, like a loss or bills coming due and you really had to pay them, or you didn't have as much business as usual. So that also turned into a fear energy, and that fear energy can actually slave drive you. So basically the divine guidance here is you are blessed with inspiration, your prayer basically was answered, and now you shouldn't really slave drive yourself, you shouldn't fear losing this creative impulse. Let me just use a more poetic expression of this, like you might be feeling that time is the fire in which you'll burn, as in you have to hurry up while you still have what you have, and that is not that true. It is true if you necessarily look at it from a strictly physical perspective, because you don't have all the time in the world, but you really don't need to rush and overdo this creativity, because it will just lead you to a necessary moment of respite. And it doesn't really matter what you do, even if you just use these creative energies in a very balanced way, you will still need a break at one point, like a vacation, or just to take some time for yourself and not to worry about anything. So the outcome is still gonna be a moment of necessary rest, and that is really your choice in which way it comes into your life. It can be like a planned rest, where everything is more under your control, but if you just overdo the creativity, it can just be random, where your body, your physical body, or your emotions will just scream at you, well, I need to stop for a little bit because this is too much for me. But fortunately, from a strict material perspective, the Knight of Coins, you're still on track, you fix the urgency. Whatever this Six of Coins represents, business, creativity, your income is still gonna be there. And since it was like the divine power coming to your help, responding to your request, you can imagine that that's not going anywhere. That will still be with you for a few months at least, so you can really chill out and just allow the creativity to just flow through you, within you, without necessarily having to control it. And at the same time, the Six of Coins can also represent that if you had support in your life when you needed it the most, that support is still there, it's still ongoing, so you really don't need to fear, you don't need to worry, you don't need to panic, you are safe. Which means that from a certain perspective you're in your comfort zone, so you don't have to really struggle. Well, this concludes your reading. Thank you so much for listening. Wish everyone a blessed weekend. Hello everyone who has chosen the third pile. As I said in the intro, these cards take a look at the energies in your life in the present moment, and of course where this is leading you to. And this reading is from a much more spiritual perspective. So your cards are the Seven of Earth, which is the Seven of Coins, the Magician, the Gardener, which is the Empress, and the Six of Air. Now the Seven of Earth is very, very significant because it represents that in just the recent past, maybe a few months ago, or over the course of the past 7 months, so something like that, you did something really, really elevated, significant, really, really honorable, which even though you might not necessarily be aware of that in the present moment, it really gave you like a massive karmic boost, which is ultimately going to manifest in your life very, very soon, quite possibly at the middle or end of autumn. Now, what that was, of course, is different for different people. This Seven of Earth represents something charitable, something noble, something very, very selfless. So for some people, it could represent a sacrifice that they have made for another person, maybe materially helping someone out with money, with whatever they needed. It could also represent a sacrifice of time, where they invested effort and time into helping another person. And that person can be family member, total stranger. For some people, it can also mean like a charitable activity, volunteering to do something, helping out your local community one way or another. It can also represent where maybe you performed a work, something that you're skilled at, or maybe your job, part of your job, and you didn't charge someone because you kind of knew that they were in a difficult situation. Or maybe you made a donation of your time and work, if this makes sense. But this can be so very many different things. It can also be like supporting an animal charity, but not like, donating a little bit of money every month, not something that insignificant, if this makes sense, but actually going and doing something, like saving an animal or volunteering or doing something more significant than just supporting it every month, because this requires a sacrifice. So it's not something that just comes very easily. But of course, it doesn't necessarily have to mean material help. It could be like supporting someone emotionally, psychologically, who was going through a very difficult situation. It can also represent where you and other people came together to help someone disadvantaged or someone who suffered a big loss. What matters is that it was a kind of sacrifice and you really didn't receive anything in return, but out of your own will, of course. But whatever this represents, even if you might not be aware of it, from a karmic perspective, it was like the last drop when your glass is full and that last drop makes it overflow. Which also means that you had very many other good deeds in your past as well. And whatever you did, this was the final gesture which kind of is triggering already a karmic avalanche heading your way. Now this magician represents, Mercury, communication, the flow of energies. And especially, in this day and age, any flow of energy enters our lives, our awareness through communication, like a letter, internet, a message, a text. Regardless of how it manifests, before we actually receive that, the information comes first, almost like thunder and lightning. When you see the flash of lightning, you know that the thunder is gonna follow. But sometimes it does take a few seconds until we are able to hear the boom. So this is basically the expression of the magician. The lightning, the discharge, the karmic discharge, in the most positive sense possible, already took place, but the information of that hasn't reached you yet. It is about to follow. And how it will manifest, well, it's basically the Empress. This can mean so very many things. It can also mean like a material prosperity, so that which you have done for another person to return into your life in even greater abundance. Because harvest and, physical well-being is always part of the symbolism of the Empress. But it can also mean like a really, really great honor bestowed upon you, which like really catapults your self-worth into all-time high. And you know, when I say self-worth, don't understand this as ego or like something which anoints your ego with honey and beautiful words and people cheering for you. It's much more like a soul level, pure happiness, a pride, a true moment of honor when you just behold who it is that you are and ultimately who it is that you become on a soul level, and cannot react any other way but just to feel proud and grateful for who you are and all the choices that you have made in your life. And even if it's not like something physical, as I said, even if it's just honor, a dignity, etc., well, it will still lead you to some kind of prosperity, don't get me wrong. But this is where the combination of the magician and the empress, in certain situation, it can just represent a wish of yours coming true. But because the magician is in upright position, in a very symbolic and almost hidden manner, you were already shown what your wish is going to be. Because one way or another, you know, as this karmic reward, the universe did trigger you to make a wish, but this is where you have to think back in the past weeks. What situations played out in your life where you just said, oh, I so wish I would have this in my life, that in my life. I so wish this would happen to me, that would happen to me. And the moment when you actually wish this, that was almost like an input command, and the universe is gonna build that up to make your wish come true. But it doesn't really matter. The Empress, well, it means something beautiful, something joyful, something honorable. It means like feeling genuinely loved and appreciated. And where the fulfillment of this is gonna guide you, well, that is an even bigger wish of yours, because the Six of Air means at least for a period of time, at least let's say for a few months, maybe a half a year, living each and every day in a state of genuine gratitude, when you cannot help it but feel grateful, when you cannot help it but feel truly appreciative of everything that you have in your life, of being alive, of being who it is that you are, of having the people who you have in your life. So it's like a feeling of being so very at peace and appreciative of everything that you have in your life, and even, let's say, the challenges or the negative things. And that experience itself is gonna be profoundly healing and regenerative, not just to your human self, but also to your spirit. So this is what the universe has to say for you guys. Thank you so much for listening. Wish everyone a fantastic and magical weekend. Hello everyone who have chosen the fourth pile. As I said in the intro, this reading takes a look at the energies in your life in the present moment and where all of this is guiding you. And this is from a more spiritual perspective. So your cards are the Empress reversed, the Two of Cups reversed, the Ace of Swords reversed, and the Lovers. Now, you don't really have to be a tarot reader to get the picture here. The Empress Venus, Two of Cups, Venus in Cancer, so romance and relationships. The Ace of Swords, some kind of truth, some kind of communication, some kind of breakthrough. And the Lovers, well, that's really self-explanatory. So I'm not really sure if all of these reverse cards represent the short-term past, the recent past, or the more distant past. But what is very certain is that one way or another, you were really, really let down from a romantic perspective. Now, it may be possible that these cards speak about an old relationship, even maybe a marriage which didn't work out, and it really doesn't matter why or the details. What matters more is that it kind of either broke your heart or really, really took away your self-esteem. But I repeat, it really doesn't have to mean that your ex-partner or whoever this person was did it purely intentionally, or they were necessarily toxic, etc. This just means that the loss that you have suffered, the disillusion, the unhappiness that followed the separation, it just took away your sense of self-worth. You might have not really felt lovable, you might not have felt beautiful, attractive, and not just physically, but basically as a soul anymore. So this Two of Cups reversed represents that your romantic life may have been on hold ever since, but for other people it can represent that you might have had dates or connections, or certain people might have had romantic interest in you, but none of it was, I don't even know, like okay for you, or none of it was like a commitment you really wanted to. So whoever entered your life, it wasn't a good match. And this Ace of Swords can sometimes represent that maybe your mind played tricks on you as well. When you met someone new, or you might have noticed that someone has an interest in you, you immediately started thinking and dreaming and being all inspired that this person is the one, this person is gonna be really good for me. But this was very soon followed by a disillusion that, well, no, there's no way a relationship with this person, that person, is actually ever gonna work. But for others still, this is way more complicated than it meets the eye. As you see, this is from a rather spiritual perspective. So for some people, this Empress reversed and the Two of Cups reversed and the Ace of Swords reversed tells the story that you were in a relationship, and I cannot say that the relationship was toxic or it was bad or it was painful or whatever, but you fell out of love and you really, really felt deep inside of you that staying in a relationship would be like deception. It would be almost harmful for that person you were with. Because if you no longer love someone, there is nothing really you can do. But at the same time, it's not that you fell out of love, but also you had this very, very strong premonition or feeling or dreams or any kind, maybe a divine guidance of some sort, that there is a true love waiting for you out there. You might not have known where, who, or even when, but you just knew that you just had to leave that relationship, and of course that is what happened. But maybe all of this took place 3 years ago or 2 years ago, and you might not have found anyone, or simply you were no longer interested. You just found yourself and you just felt that that was what you always were seeking in your life, to just be okay with yourself. While other people might have perceived this as it was maybe your inner being deceiving you with good intent for you to have the strength and the motivation to leave that relationship behind, because it would have got toxic at the end, so you terminated before things got really bad. Now, what does all of this have to do with the energies in your life right now? All of these cards are reversed, so that means it's the past. And it also means that you might not really be aware of these specific kind of energies being once again active in your life. But this Ace of Swords reversed means that someone is either watching you, someone is observing you, for example, especially if you have social media, or maybe a friend of a friend saw you or heard about you or briefly met you. Or it can even be that you met a person in the just recent past, in any circumstance except romantic, business, or you went to a shop, or, imagine anything random, which just doesn't really have to do with romance, but it still connects people. And that person might be really, really interested in you, and you might not really have any idea about this whatsoever. But for other people, it can be much more than a coincidental meeting. Maybe you helped someone, a person, with something unconditionally, and that something can be maybe related to your job, or you encouraged someone, you said something really, really nice. And also, this might not have that much to do with the symbolism of the cards themselves, but I'm picking if you're playing or participating in something online, like an online game or a online group of where you have the same hobbies with some other people. But these have to be something really lighthearted, so it's not serious as conspiracy theories and spiritual groups and stuff like that. Because this is something you really don't expect and you're really not aware of. You might have sparked someone interest, and that interest is really, really genuine, where you might have left such a very, very strong imprint on that person from a very small gesture or a communication or a help, something really beautiful, encouraging, soul-touching that you said, that that person just cannot get you out of their mind. And what follows next, well, you see, this Ace of Swords is like Uranus in astrology, a surprise, something unexpected. This is where, the sword drops. And either they openly tell you their feelings and what a powerful effect you had on them, or maybe someone else tells you that, this person might be interested in you because they speak about you, they mention you all the time, or it can be just a confrontation with the truth that someone has a genuine romantic interest. And this Lover's card, well, it means that even if this person might not be that big fated lover or whatever, a relationship with this person can actually work. And the spiritual side of all of this is that what you need also needs you. What you're looking for is also looking for you, and especially when this energy is unconscious. So it doesn't come from something that you can control. Well, that is when it seems so very fated. That is when the biggest surprises in life actually take place. So basically, this means that it's actually a gift of the universe, because what you have felt in the distant past, when you felt that someone is destined for you and that you are ultimately going to enter into the best relationship in your life, that was an energy imprint. So that person didn't exist yet as a physical, living, breathing person, but the pattern did exist. So basically what you were dreaming of, what you felt, what you perceived was the pattern, and it is now that that pattern is gonna try and fulfill itself, if that makes sense. So one way or another, you're gonna be guided to a potential union, and this is very important because even if this specific person whose energy appears right now in your life is, let's say, not perfect for you, the pattern is still gonna play out, so another will come and then another and another. This is where, for you personally, the time of unions is approaching in your life, so the candidates are gonna line up, at least energetically speaking. Now, of course, I am perfectly aware that not everyone who chose the fourth pile is single. So if you are in a committed relationship, this is very, very simple. Your partner has been doing something behind your back, but that something was really, really beautiful. Like they're planning a surprise, they're planning something very, very positive. They want to make you feel loved, they want to make you feel special, or if they might have made a mistake, especially in the recent past, which upset you, they're planning to really, really fix that. So it's like a very pleasant surprise that's gonna come from your partner. And if they act all suspicious and you might be thinking, like, what are they possibly doing? Well, it's not something bad, it's actually something really positive and delightful. But there is another possible interpretation of these cards. So especially, this is valid if you're in a committed relationship. You might meet another couple who's gonna become your friends for life, and something really, really good is about to enter your life through that couple. So this is basically like making lifelong friends, and being friends with that other couple is really gonna improve your life even from a spiritual perspective. So basically this concludes your reading. Thank you so much for listening, and wish everyone a blessed and beautiful weekend. Until next time, bye for now.